Hello, and welcome to another edition of Truth Bombs and Heart Nudges with me, your host, Lori Herbers. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Candace Dunaway. Welcome, Candace.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear your story. So why don't you first start off and tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I guess I'm a podcast host. I have a podcast called All Things Relatable, where I sit down, same as you, and talk to different people and have them sharing their stories. I'm all about wellness. I am a former teacher, so I taught for 7 years before I resigned, and I just absolutely love the outdoors. I could just be outside all day long and love wellness, and gratitude is my superpower. I really live like a simple life, but a really, really joyful, happy life where I can always find the silver linings and look for the little things in every day.
That's nice. I like that. And I think when you have a life that's so like drastically full of things, it's hard to be joyful because you don't take time for the little things.
Yes, absolutely. And I learned that along the way, like in this story that we're going to dive into. That definitely was something that came through.
Okay, well, let's dive into your story. So where does your story begin?
Okay, so I had the golden ticket, like many people would think, or in the teacher space. The first year that I taught, I got a permanent contract. So this was like the golden ticket that as soon as you get a permanent contract, basically, if you stay in the same district till you retire, you are guaranteed a job every single year. So you've got your summers off, your benefits, your security with your job. So I had this golden ticket, as people would thought. And I guess going back to childhood, every year my family would go to BC. We were from Alberta. And every year we'd jump in our little topaz, all three kids packed in the back like sardines. We wouldn't stop. We'd drive until we got to BC. And then we would enjoy this like amazing week there. Like we love the summer. Every summer we'd go. And then, my husband is actually from BC too. So it kind of continued on every summer during the holidays. We'd head back to BC every year. And every time we would drive into the mountains, there'd be this whole body feeling that would just come over me. And I just felt like I was at home, like in the mountains, by the lakes, having outdoor accessibility, like at your fingertips. We love the outdoors. We love to be outside, hiking, biking, walking, dirt biking, fishing, like anything you name outside. Like we just love the outdoors. So every year we would just drive in to BC and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. This feels like home. And we used to say like, one day we'll live in BC. One day we'll make it happen. One day our house will be here. And then I'm not even sure what sparked the conversation. But my hubby and I just had talked about like, how can we make it there sooner than later? Like, what do we have to do? And so we decided to put the house up for sale. I resigned from my permanent contract, which everybody thought I was crazy that I talked to. And we just were like, we didn't have a plan, but we just thought we'll just figure it out. So the people that I would talk to before we decided to take the leap, when I'd say, I just want to live in BC, like I'm called, I feel like that is kind of like the nudge at my heart. And in conversations, they'd be like, well, just wait 30 years, wait till you retire and then move to BC. And to me, that was so bizarre. I'm like, why wait my whole entire life to live this life that I want to? So I don't even know what it was that sparked the decision, but we're like, okay, we'll put up the house for sale. We'll go to BC, try to make it happen. So then that's kind of what we did. We put the house up for sale. My husband works in oil and gas. So his plan was to stay in Grand Prairie where we were until the house sold. And me and my son, after our summer vacation, like we did every year to BC, went down for like the month of August and we didn't leave. We stayed. And my mother-in-law had this little suite up the house from her house. And my son and I stayed and we just thought, okay, my husband is going to join us when the house sells. So that's kind of like how it all started. We just thought, we're going to figure it out. We don't really have a plan, but we just feel so called and we're just going to try to make it work.
Yeah. So the people that were like, wait 30 years, did you have like a lot of naysayers? Like, did anyone tell you don't do this or anything like that?
I honestly think it was other people's, like them feeling scared or nervous about it because like we really didn't have a plan. I think a lot of people were excited for me, but didn't know like what it would look like. They were kind of like, oh my gosh, she's actually like doing it and chasing her dream. And that's really inspiring, but holy crap, like, how is she doing that? She doesn't have a job lined up. The house hasn't sold yet. She's just going down there. So I don't really think there wasn't many naysayers. I did have a conversation with my best friend, and because it was kind of scary, like actually resigning from this like golden ticket that I had and kind of leaving, even though I felt called to, it was kind of scary. And I mean, I've grew up and since junior high and all of my friends were here. My family was here, my mom and dad. And so I was leaving them. So my girlfriend said, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, you moved back home? And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's the worst thing that could happen. And I love it here. I do love the people. I do love the city. I just feel called to go somewhere else. So I'm like, yeah, I guess that is the worst thing that could happen. I could move back and that's the worst. So why not go after it?
Right. Do you think that helps, contemplating that if this is the worst thing that could happen, but that's not so bad, did that kind of make it easier to follow that nudge to go where you felt like you were meant to go?
Yeah, I always kind of felt like I would be okay. Like I just had this feeling like it doesn't matter what happens, I'll be okay. And that, yeah, I could always, go back to teaching. I could always come back and get a position. I could always sub. I have a lot of experience in retail and serving. And so I feel like I'm resourceful. I have skills that I'd always be okay. So I think maybe having that, yeah, maybe it did allow me to kind of follow the nudge, but I feel like I just couldn't ignore it. Like, it doesn't matter like what would have happened. I feel like I could end up living in a cardboard box and I would just figure stuff out. Like, I just knew that it doesn't matter what happens. Like great things are going to come from it, even if it doesn't turn out. That I was just willing to jump in with both feet, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what is scary to some people is the unknown, and wanting to, and maybe it's just the way I'm thinking it, but it's almost like a control thing. They want to have control over their life. And so following that heart nudge or whatever it is that they feel like it's calling them, if it seems like it's too big and too scary and they don't know the how or, if this is working out, that it's just easier to stay, what I say is complacent and not go. But I do like how you said, one day this, one day that. And it's the same, like one day I'm going to have this, or like when this happens, I'll be happy. Or when this happens, then I can have joy. Or when I meet this person, then I'm going to live my life. Like we always have these, one day kind of things. So I love that you're sharing this story because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that, and I did it. I remember times in my life where I'm like, well, once this happens, then I'll be okay. Or if I just have this much money, then I can do this thing. And I like that you were like, I don't want to wait that long. Why should I have to wait to be happy and to have what I really want now?
Yes. Yes. Okay. There's two things in that you said that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this so resonates with me. I feel like I've practiced gratitude for over 6 years. So, yeah, I've always enjoyed the journey along the way. I feel like, a lot of times we might get into that space where like, when this happens, when this happens, when this happens, exactly like you said. But yeah, it's great to have goals and things to strive for, but you have to enjoy the now. You have to enjoy the journey. So I think that's a big part of the journey for me. Is I've practiced gratitude for so long. Every day I write 3 things that I'm grateful for, 1 thing that I love about myself. So I'm always kind of looking for all of the gratitude. So even along the journey, it has been very joyful because I'm really intentional about that. And then the other thing that you brought up is like, it is scary. It is scary, but I just have to say, be scared and do it anyways, because what's worse, like not feeling fulfilled or going after it or not having control. We don't have control anyways. Like that's just like an illusion. And as soon as, you think you have control, something happens and you're like, oh my, we don't have control. So being scared, I feel like that's kind of what I've been doing, being scared and just doing it anyways, because even where it led me, it didn't lead me to this place where I thought I would be. So I just did it. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know the how. You don't need to know the how, because even when you think you know the how, depending on the little pieces that come along the way, it might change. The direction of the journey might be different or surprising, or something might come up that you never even dreamed of. So we got to BC. We lived, my son and I, for 3 months. We lived in this little 500 square foot 70s basement suite, coming from like a pretty, I guess, average size house. And then things didn't roll out the way I may have hoped for, but they rolled out so perfectly for my journey. So I think, let go of that hold of the vision, have that goal or have that vision, but you have to detach from it. It's good to work towards something and have a goal in mind, but you have to be able to detach from the outcome, because things might not work out the way that you think that they will.
Yeah, I like that you said that. Yeah, because, and actually might have been like a little truth bomb I had a while back, was as soon as you tried to hold on to something, you've already lost it, was the words that came to me one day. And I was like, what? Wait, but that's true, because the harder you try to hold on to things, it doesn't do what you want, because you're so trying to control that you're upset because then nothing's going the way that you want. But when you let go and, like you said, have gratitude in the moments and enjoy the blue skies and the rain and the sunshine and the rainbows and all of those moments of the journey, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, look at this amazing thing that happened.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you open yourself
and I
up.
just think of ourselves, like as soon as somebody tries to control us, like it doesn't feel nice. It's like a gross feeling as soon as you feel like you're being controlled. So like the energy just isn't in alignment when you're trying to hold on or control something. So, desperately hold on to it. And another thing, like in the gratitude, I would also find gratitude in like the situations that maybe weren't so lovely and wonderful. So like, for example, during the pandemic, I bought a car, and like a few months after I bought it, I had a $3,000 repair on it. And like for a split second, I just wanted to find everybody who was willing to listen to me and just like bitch about like, oh my gosh, this $3,000 repair. And for a split second, my mind went there and I was like, no, switch it. okay, how grateful that you have the money to be able to repair your vehicle. You have a safe vehicle to get you to and from places in your family. There's people that you're providing this money to that maybe like the small business, they've been shut down, like cars aren't on the road. They're not bringing in money like they normally would. Maybe you're paying someone's wage. Maybe you're giving these workers some work to do so they don't get laid off. So I feel like even in situations where, you hit the train, before I used to get panicked and sweaty, like, oh my gosh, I hit the train, I got to be here. And now it's like, oh, like maybe I'll like look at the sunset. How gorgeous is this? Or, oh, this is a really amazing song. I have time to listen to like one more great song on the radio. Or like, maybe this is preventing me from getting in an accident. Like, just even in the things that aren't so seemingly like that you'd be grateful for, like look for the silver lining, because you can find gratitude in it all, I think.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yeah, and actually just this morning, I almost got slammed by this other car because we just had snow, and I was getting off on an exit and I hit ice. And so I'm like, I had no control. Like I'm sliding, going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And this person was across the way, and I saw him out the corner of my eye, and I was thinking, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And they came barreling across, and like literally we almost like hit side by side, and it just at the last second they pulled ahead, and I was just going the whole time, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, first I'm not slamming into me, because that would have been a really bad start to my day. And so, and I think back to when I was younger, before I really got to enjoy my journey and look at every lesson instead of what is this doing to me, what is it doing for me. I was just so thankful in that moment that I didn't get hit. I was okay. They were okay. I don't know what it did for me other than, woke me up a little bit more than I had been. But it's in those moments that I would have gone crying to every single person I've met that day. Almost got hit, almost got hit, almost got hit, almost got hit, almost got hit. And then I would have been I would have wasted my whole day focusing on something that actually turned out to be fine. And so I told the first person I saw, and then after that I was done. I just had to share it with someone because I was still shaking. I was just shaking.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I know I got this advice from this wonderful woman years ago, and she told me, you can tell 3 people, and then after that it's gossip. So after she told me that, I'm like, okay, like who do I want to spend this on? Do I want to tell my best friend? Do I want to tell my husband? Like, do I want to tell my family? And then after like you keep going, then it's gossip. So yeah, because I think we can spend a lot of time there complaining about all of the things. So I think, yeah, that was something that helped me get through this situation in BC that didn't and wasn't working out, and nothing was going the way, like nothing worked out. Well, there were some things that worked out, but we were in BC, and I put my son in childcare because I planned on getting a job, right? I've worked since I was like maybe 12 doing paper routes. I don't know. So I just assumed I'm moving to BC. I'm subbing. Of course I'm subbing. I've taught for 7 years. I have wonderful references. And I'll get on the sub list and I'll start working and kind of figure it out and see what I want to branch off and do. So got my son enrolled in childcare. I applied for teaching. Nobody called me. I went in, I called, I'm like, oh, just want to know if you are looking for subs, because if you're not, then, obviously I have other skills, whatever. Nobody called me back. Finally, I went into the building and with a paper copy of my resume, here you go. Are you guys looking for anybody? Oh, the person to talk to is in a meeting. I'll get her to call you back. I'm like, perfect. Like they never called me back. I applied. I'm not even kidding you. I never want to write a cover letter ever again in my life. I applied for probably about 100 jobs everywhere that you can imagine. So this is one of the lessons that I learned. Like when you say to someone like, go get a job, it's not that hard. Well, I think the stars weren't aligned. Like I wasn't supposed to get a job, and we'll get into that, but it really wasn't that easy for me. I applied for like 100 jobs for everything that you could imagine, for teaching. Obviously that wasn't coming about. I was in retail. So I applied at like Home Depot, the Sports Check, like every retail business. Winners. I used to serve for like 10 years while I was going to school. So I applied at every job that was posted, I was applying for, going in person. I could not get a job. In the whole 3 months that I was there, I got one job for one night working the election. Like I was educated. I had skills. I wanted to work. Like I was going to bring, like, it didn't matter if I worked at a place for 6 months or a year or whatever it was. Like, I will benefit your company. Like I'm all in. I'm a hard worker. I've got all these skills. And I had access to the internet, to print a resume, to a vehicle. My son was in daycare. So my time was open all day. I could go at like the perfect time to speak to the managers, drop things off. In the whole time I was there, I never, besides that one night, got hired, which is like craziness. So it's when you say or think like, go get a job. How hard is it? Well, actually, I learned that it was really hard.
It is. It's not, when I was younger, it seems so much easier. Now it's all about who you know. Like if you don't know somebody who knows somebody, they don't know you. And so they're like, eh. It makes it really hard.
Yes, it does. And it is about the connections and who you know, which I realized because where I was from, I grew up here. I knew everybody. I had a good reputation. I taught, and like I could get a job probably at any of the schools because I had connections and people knew who I was. So yeah, it was really hard.
So what did you do after, nobody's calling? Then what?
Okay, this is what I did. You're not going to believe this. I did some really amazing things. Okay. So first, my mother-in-law, she lived down the street and she went to yoga 2 or 3 times a week. And it was such a blessing to have her because as somebody who like, I wanted to work, I've worked for so long, like, she's like, you know what, you're never going to get this time back. Like, why don't you just like take a couple weeks and not apply anywhere and just enjoy it? Cause she knew like, it's not like I'm just lazy, like freeloading or, so I'm like, okay. So since I thought that I would be living in Kamloops, now this was my new home. I'm just waiting to get a job. My son is in childcare. I signed up. She went to yoga. So I went with her. There was like a week of free classes where you could do as many as you wanted. And so I went to yoga with her. And then I bought a year membership. I was like, I'm going to start going to yoga. And so every day I would drop my son off at maybe 8 a.m, 8:30. The yoga class would start at 9. I went 5 days a week to yoga. That was the most amazing time. It kept my mind and body sane. It was something for me. And I realized I give. I always give. I was always the yes man. I always pour into other people, which I love. But then I kind of neglected myself. My husband, like I said before, he worked away. So it was really hard for me to commit to a class. Like he'd do like 2 weeks on, a week off. So there was no like really set schedule because he could kind of come and go. So I couldn't, go to a yoga on Monday every week and he'd be home to take care of our little guy. So there my son was taken care of. And like, I found the time for me. I found that space, which really kept me grounded and was incredible finally to find that for myself again. And then in the daytime, so this is what I thought I was going to do, which this is why I think like, so I created a sign business, a home decor. So the sign behind me that's on my, that's what I was going to do. I love connection. I wanted to bring women together, doing something that was fun and connecting. And so that's what I did. I created a sign business and every day I would figure out like what materials I needed. I got a logo made. I bought the paint, spent $1,000 in paint, bought the wood, got it cut. That's what I was going to do. So in all of this time, we still had the same bills that we had because we still had a mortgage back home where my husband was at. And then we had another $500 for the suite that we were living in. And I was bringing in $0. Like I went from making a pretty decent paycheck to $0. And I'm creating this sign business. So here I am just like, no, it's all going to work out. Like I probably spent over the course of 3 months about $10,000 between the logo, the paints, the materials, the nailers. Like I was going to do it. I was going to do it great. And then I put on a sign building night at the yoga studio that I signed up for a year. You got a free use of their space. And I was like, perfect. This is where I'm going to, do my classes from. So got it all set up, got everything in there, did it. And then I found out I didn't like it. It wasn't, everybody was so busy stenciling their signs that the connection, like it was missing that connection that I wanted. I wanted women to connect and talk and laugh and share stories and it'd be like this amazing night out. And I was like, the paint slayer. All that I would do is like give paint to everybody, like give them their little tips. Like half of them would ignore me anyways. And then we'd have to like fix up the signs after, but that's what I was doing. I was like slaying paint and it wasn't really like how I envisioned. So I realized that like anything I set my mind to, I can create. That's what I was kind of doing in the meantime, while getting outdoors, while making the best of it, exploring local. So that's what I was doing in the daytime and created this business that I ended up not loving. So yeah.
And then, and that almost makes me think back to the how you're going to do it. So you came up with the how, and then the how was not like what you wanted. So again, that's almost like reiterating, stop worrying about the how. This is kind of what I'm hearing. Don't worry about the how. Then I'm going to jump. I'm making a leap that because you knew that wasn't working, you wanted the connection, that I'm guessing another shift came along.
Yes. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to make a move because they're scared it's going to be the wrong move, but making a move will guide you along your path. So even though the sign thing wasn't what like fulfilled me or, it wasn't the thing, it guided me in a whole different direction. Like I knew that it just led me closer down my path. Like there is no wrong decision, just make a move, because some people ponder this like their whole life about like, I don't know what the thing is, or just like dabble and try things and you'll figure out if it's like something you love or something you don't. Or maybe you think that it's like the thing and you wait like 30 years to do it and then you do it and you're like, oh, that's actually not the thing. So just make a decision and go for it. And if it doesn't work out, well, you'll have, more knowledge or more lessons added to what you've got going on. Yeah. So after all this is happening, my husband and I had a choice to make. The house was up for renewal. It didn't sell, wasn't selling. And, all the stars weren't aligning and we gave it a really good shot. And then we decided, you know what, like we don't have to move. Like, it's not like you're in a situation where you've gotta, we're not forced to move. This is something that we wanted to try. Obviously the timing isn't right. Like nothing's really working out. So, let's take the house off the market and you can come back and we can come back. And like I said in the beginning, my friend said to me, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You could come home. And that was the best thing that happened. I took away from this experience all of these lessons. I don't even know if Kamloops would be the place that I'd call home. So I feel like it was a good 3 months to kind of like explore the city, to be down there. But after coming back, we're like, is it there? It could be, but maybe it's not there. So it was good that we weren't like in a new home tied to something, and then it wasn't something that we love. So I ended up coming back December 2019. I got a position. I subbed, it's like the connections. I subbed, and then I got offered a position, I don't know, a couple weeks after I subbed, and started a full-time position again. And I was in my home, and it felt really amazing. And then, well, in 2020, the pandemic hit. And I thought, thank you, like universe, that I am in my home where it's nice and cozy, and I love my home. I am surrounded by all of the people, like all of my friends that, I'm so connected to. I have a job. I have an income coming in. Like, I'm not stuck there with no job, in a basement suite that's 500 square feet where you're like cut off from the world, right? You can't go anywhere. I have like my backyard. I have my friends. I have a position. So it all wasn't, the stars never aligned, and they weren't meant to, because I was meant to be back in my home that felt really, really good, with all of these lessons that I learned, when the pandemic hit, which then led to, kind of where I am now with self-development and investing in myself. And
Yeah. So, and I know how you said like the stars didn't align, but maybe they did. Maybe they actually did. They just took you on a little tour, a little roundabout.
you know what? I like how you phrase that, because I guess that's it. The stars didn't align how I thought they would align, or what I was hoping for, but they aligned so perfectly to then, I guess, create this picture of where I ended up.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then after having this position, this teaching position, and the pandemic hit. And, as a teacher, you're a former teacher, or are you still
Mhm.
teaching?
No, I am not teaching anymore.
Okay. So you understand this then. As a teacher, you don't really, or I didn't really see the world in the daytime. Like, lunch is like 22 minutes, 30 minutes if you're lucky. Like, you don't leave the building for lunch, right? It's like,
Mhm.
now it's like, oh my gosh, it's Friday and I'm going like to Earl's for lunch. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm part of the public. So the pandemic happened, and I was teaching, and then we went online, and then like kind of a series of events happened. Somehow I stumbled upon Carrie Dahl's podcast, and somehow ended up, the first episode I listened to was Mike House, and he's the CEO, and president of the Stollery Children's Foundation at the hospital. And Mike ended up having a craniotomy, and my son had a craniotomy. So right away, I just related to the episode, was super connected, was like, oh my gosh, like he had the same surgery that my son had. And I just really loved listening to Carrie. She's an amazing interviewer. So then I kind of looked at her webpage, and it said the very next day she was starting this Inner Circle Facebook group. And it was like $35 or something like that for a month to join in. And I was like, oh yeah, like this is kind of like the nudge, right? Like, I don't know. I've, read books and listened to podcasts and got some free stuff. And I feel like everybody always wants all the free stuff, right? But it's like, yeah, paying $35 a month. Yeah, I'll pay for that. Like, it's worth it. I want to be in this. I want to be with, like, having conversations, and she's going to pull guests up, and we're going to talk about all these different topics. So that night I signed up. The next day was the first call. And so through the pandemic, I was able to join these calls. I think they were like noon to 1. So because I was teaching from home and doing the online stuff, my schedule was flexible, and I could shift my breaks. So I was able to join the Inner Circle, which she had these incredible guests on, and I was able to join these conversations. And then through the guest that she had on, there was one guest, Christina LaCure, who I currently work with, doing one-on-one coaching, and I was in her mastermind, but she was a guest. And I just connected to her. I rewatched it. I was on it live, but then I watched it 2 more times, and I messaged her. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've watched this 3 times. Like your energy is just like so amazing. I want more of it. And she's like, oh, I do this coaching. So I'm like, sign me up. And she's like, oh, I have a mastermind. I'm like, sign me up for that too. I don't know how much it costs. Then I got the bill and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like US dollars, like us Canadians. Oh my gosh, like conversion rates. And the cost was like more than my mortgage payment. And I was like, I just feel like I just need to be in your energy. And so I worked with her, and through working with her, through our like conversations, like the podcast came up. Like, how do you feel about doing a podcast? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am naturally curious. I love connection. I love listening to people's stories. Like I am that annoying person that asks like 5,000 questions. Like I honestly do want to know more. I'm not just asking to like ask or be polite. Like my husband's like, oh my gosh, you like know that stranger and like all about their whole life. And I'm like, I'm just generally curious. And so I would have never a podcast. What? So then I was like, yeah, this feels really good. I guess I'm going to start a podcast. Well, guess what? Thank goodness that like during COVID, you couldn't meet up, because like, where was I going to like rent a space, find a space, fly in guests? I don't know, find the guests. But since everything was on Zoom, I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. I have like an empty bedroom that I'm going to make my office, and I can record podcasts, and like, I don't have all this pressure, and yeah, I can do it. So, got into the podcast. Then I joined the mastermind, with a group of like-minded women. Yeah, I just wanted to connect with people who were, doing the same thing, wanting to grow and evolve and do great things. So it never even crossed my mind that any of them would be on the podcast. But after meeting them, there is, I think, maybe 5 of them or so that ended up being guests on the podcast. So it just like all of these little things, like going down through this journey, jumping in with both feet, just trusting that whatever was going to happen was just going to be okay. It really led me to the most beautiful space where now I am. I realized I would have never, ever resigned from teaching and lived in Grand Prairie. Like it wouldn't have made sense. Like, why would I resign to then sub and have no benefits and make half of the pay? Like I wouldn't have, or if I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it took me jumping in with both feet, moving away, resigning from my position, giving it away, the freedom to then come back. I took that position for the end of like that year, that 4 months. And then I guess through that first COVID year, which then we taught online, but then I went to subbing, and I never would have done that if I stayed here. So good to be back home, and it feels really good. And to have that freedom and flexibility to then create all of these beautiful things. So I do still envision for myself like lake life, and I'm still, I guess, doing all the things that are going to eventually lead in some way that way. And I guess most recently, it'll be a retreat that I'm hosting in Jasper in a couple months in the mountains, like on the lake. So I'm doing that. That's what I've like really like dreamed of, is like doing the retreats and stuff. So it's just so crazy how like all of that didn't work out, but it was, for some things that I could have never even thought of. It was like not even in the plan, like a podcast, like doing retreats. Like you just have to let go and let in whatever it is that, is meant and will come.
I like that. I like that a lot, because I was sitting here as you're talking and I'm thinking, none of this would have happened if you wouldn't have taken that chance. that first step, nothing would have changed without that first step. So that's a reminder to everyone listening. Don't be afraid to take that first step. Take the step. And I also learned this, I think it was just this year. No, last year. This is a newer year. Well, last year I had this epiphany because I was always thinking about, you reap what you sow. And I knew that I was sowing all these good things. And I was sitting there going, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? And then God's like, reap is a verb. What are you doing? And I'm like, sitting here waiting. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. What am I going to do? Yeah. Start taking some steps. It doesn't just magically come to you because you're sitting here. So get out of there, get out of your comfort zone. I love your story.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Exactly. Like I don't really agree with this saying, but I think there's something to it. Like they say, like nothing good ever happened in your comfort zone. Well, I think there's lots of really great things that happen in your comfort zone, but there's like lots of amazing things that are just like right outside your comfort zone.
Mhm.
And you just have to be willing to get uncomfortable and to be scared and just do it anyways. Like I'm not superhuman. I was scared. I had like these thoughts in the back of my mind. I was just willing to do it anyways, regardless, because I had that nudge. And I think we all can admit that there are nudges on our hearts and sometimes we just ignore them or, turn the volume down a bit or like shut them off because it's scary. Like change is scary. Even if it's a good thing, it is scary. And then sometimes you've got to like grieve the old life that you lived, or there's so many reasons that people ignore the nudges, but I mean, it just will get louder and louder and louder and louder. And yeah, you just have to be scared and do it anyways. I mean, you don't have to do what I did and put the house up for sale and resign and move provinces. And you don't have to do that. But I mean, if there is something on your heart, regardless of what it is, like just take a step closer, little tiny baby steps to see where it'll lead.
Yeah, life doesn't have to be always serious. Have fun with it. Life's going to be messy no matter what. So I always look at it as like, you know what, let's have some fun with it. So I ethically, make a oopsies. I don't really believe there's mistakes or failures technically. I'm like you. I believe everything will come back around. Like if it's not meant for me, then I'm going to circle back around to where I made the left. And this time I'll take a right because I'm like, ooh, the left didn't work this time, so I'm going to go right. So I feel like, whatever we're meant to do, as long as we're taking steps towards it, even if we feel like we're going the wrong way, we'll circle back around. I totally believe that.
Yes. And when you get in alignment and your energy is like clean and you're doing what it is that like lights you up. And it doesn't even have to be like career wise. It could just be like your leisure activities or like your relationships or whatever it is that just lights you up and has you feeling alive. When you get into that energetic space, like the expansion that comes, the things that it leads you to, like I said before, are things that you could have never even dreamed a possibility. So it's like this amazingness is just waiting for you. And I feel like as long as you're kind of stepping in and following the nudges, then it prevents itself. Like you said, when you like sow the seeds, is that what it's called? When you put them in the ground?
Yep.
Yep. Yes. When you sow the seeds, like, not every plant pops up at the same time, same speed, and some look different. And it's like they pop up at different times when they're meant to, or when you're ready, or so, take the steps, make the little decisions and just have a belief that it's all working for you. And it might not immediately present itself, but sometimes it'll pop up. Yeah. Whenever I think whenever the timing is right.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. There's a time and place for everything and there's a season for everything. So even if you don't like where you're at right now, it's just a season. Go sow some new seeds.
Yes. And enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. I just can't even say that enough because I've been through a lot of shitty things in my life and we all have had seasons, but if you can find the gratitude, you can enjoy parts of the journey, even when things aren't going well. that's just going to change everything for sure.
Yeah, joy is a choice. And I remember like every year I have a word for the year. And I don't remember, it was like 5 or 6 years ago. Joy was my year. That year was like one of the worst. Like I didn't have a job for 7 months. I was running out of all of my money. I had no idea what I was going to do. And yet every morning I chose joy. That was like the best experience in a crazy roundabout way, because it taught me that no matter what's going on, I can still have joy in my day. So yeah, it's a
Mm,
choice.
I absolutely love that. And like how perfect that that was your word when your year would unfold like that. Like how perfect.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so do you have any last little tips or inspiration you would like to share before we end?
I always have a million things.
I know it's hard to pick. Which one's at the top
I
of your head?
know. Um, I guess the thing that I talked about today earlier that's like on my mind is really investing in yourself. Um, there's no greater gift you can give to yourself. There's no better investment. So whatever that looks like for you, um, invest, put the money into yourself. You are absolutely worth it. Um, when you show up as the highest version of yourself, it's like a butterfly effect, and everybody around you will reap the rewards from it. And oftentimes, we're so willing to put money into everything else, but that investment into ourselves. And some of the things don't have to be tangible. It doesn't have to be like a new car or a new pair of pants or um, an essential oil or whatever it is. When you invest in a coach or a program or an experience or an event or whatever it is for your self development, like the lasting effects that that can have are priceless. So if you're feeling the nudge on your heart to invest in yourself in some way, then I would say that's your next um, greatest decision to make is for yourself.
You're worth it. That's what I'm going to
Yes.
say. You are worth it. I've spent a lot of money on myself. Yeah. So, and I can honestly say, I was one of those people that never did anything for myself either. And a couple of years ago, like I went all in. I'm done being unhappy. I want to have love, and I put 5 figures. I think back to that. I'm like, I don't even know how that happened, but when you invest in yourself, it comes back towards you. Like I didn't have the money to do it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm worth it. And the money just showed up. So yeah. Don't think of the how, just know it will.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been amazing listening to your story. I hope the listeners, I mean, there were so many like nudges and truth bombs in just what you were saying that I hope that they hear those and they're like, you know what? I'm taking a step for myself and let's do this thing.
Yes. Yes. I hope you walk away. I hope everybody walks away with a little something, a little tiny nudge or a little tiny snippet of something that they're going to take the action on.
Yeah. Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait for 30 years. All
No,
right.
do it now. Yes. Thank you so much for having me on. I've loved chatting with you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.